When you are a generous person and you share your gifts, there are going to be people that want to be in rich relationship with you. And I actually really want to talk about this concept of golden moments, which is really being able to identify when it matters most to show up. When people are in pain, how can you be the first to offer help versus the last to give help, right? So how can you be the first? I really believe in just like taking initiative when it comes to relationships. When you see someone that you care about in pain, how can you just proactively reach out to them and offer to be helpful? And similarly, thinking about people's biggest goals and dreams, right? Like you become their favorite person when you show up and you're like, I want to help you reach that goal and dream faster. Are you open to me making this connection? Could I support you in this way, right? I'm just very good at identifying the moments where people need help. And then I just show up in a way that feels relaxed and abundant.
Well, hello there and welcome to this episode of the Terri Cole Show, where I'm going to be talking about creating rich relationships with someone who I've been friends with, I just realized in this conversation, for a long time. Definitely now I think it's since 2011. So that's however many years that is, 25. So it's 14 years. Anyway, her name is Selena Soo, and she has a brand new book that just dropped. She is a 7-figure business mentor who helps experts and authors reach millions with their message. Right. And she was actually, that's how I met her originally. We were in a mastermind together, but she's given me some really good advice over the many years, and she's had dozens of multi-6-figure and 7-figure launches in her entrepreneurial business. She's generated over $13 million in revenue in her first 10 years of business, and she has built more than 400 affiliate and referral partnerships. So her writing a book on rich relationships makes so much sense. The book is called Rich Relationships Book, Create $1 Million Network for Your Small Business. But to be honest with you, as we were talking about it, I felt like what we talked about in this interview, this applies to not just work relationships. A lot of her advice and different strategies she's come up with applies to life, actual other relationships, not just work stuff. So I hope that you enjoy this interview with Selena Soo as much as I enjoyed interviewing my friend. I'm super excited to welcome my friend Selena Soo to the Terri Cole Show. Welcome, Selena.
Hello, hello. It's so great to be here.
I'm so happy we're finally doing this. It's super exciting. You and I have known, I was telling the audience at the top that you and I have known each other for many, many years in New York.
Yes.
And now outside of New York. And that you were someone who really influenced my career. We met when I was sort of coming up and really starting to embrace having a public platform and my podcast and all the things I was doing. And I remember something that you taught me years ago that really, really influenced what ended up happening in my career. So I'm just going to quickly share it because I think it's great advice that when I started really sort of striving for more visibility with my personal brand, because even though I'm a therapist, it's still a brand, right? You're still doing things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I said, well, what do you think? Because you were a PR expert. And I was like, what are your thoughts on this? And you said, well, whose world would you want to be in? Like, who is aspirational for you? So I said a few names, and you said, are you supportive of their work? And I said, oh, I'm a fan of their work. You're like, yeah, but that's not the same as being supportive of their work. And I said, well, what does that look like? And you say, how can you be of service to them? So it flipped the whole notion. So instead of being like, what can I get from them?
Right.
You were like, no. The question is, how can I be of service? That leads us right into your brand new book, Rich Relationship Book, Create $1 Million Network for Your Small Business. And over the years, you've helped me in so many ways. And obviously we've helped each other as well. But I just want to publicly appreciate you for teaching me that publicity and relationships, that none of this, you can network in a way that is authentic, and that is not gross, and that is not markety and yucky. And I really learned that from you. So I'm so happy that you are here with me today, my friend.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. No, that's so beautiful. And, when I think about building rich relationships, the foundation of that is really showing up as a generous person. And
Mhm.
inside the book, I talk about this concept of breathtaking generosity, which is what it sounds like when someone is just so kind, so generous that literally takes your breath away and you can't even speak. You're like, wow. And so I think that sometimes when people hear, the word networking, they think like it sounds tiring. It sounds like I'm running around to a million events. But when you're
Mhm.
really focused on helping people in the ways that really matter, that really move the needle for them and touch their hearts, you don't have to be doing things all the time. As long as you're doing some things intentionally and purposefully, you're creating those rich relationships.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about what sort of brought you, like why this book and why now? What brought you here?
Absolutely. So I have been passionate about rich relationships for a long time. I wanted to write this book over 18 years ago, but it was never the right time. And I would say that intuitively, I knew that the fastest way for all of us to get from where we are to where we want to be is a rich relationship. Someone opening up the door, pulling us to the next level. Every single problem that we have in life, every challenge, every struggle can be alleviated through a rich relationship, right? So it
Mm.
really all comes down to people. And, for many years, I was really focused on helping people get publicity and visibility because the rich relationship that I was focused on was the media. Because when there were people that I just really believed in, I wanted the world to know about them. And so I
Mhm.
wanted to, give them that opportunity to be on this bigger platform and spread their message. But now my vision is so much bigger than just the media. It's really helping people create, nurture, and activate all kinds of rich relationships.
So let's talk a little bit about that because what I love about this book is that it's professional, yes, for your small business,
Yeah.
but it's so much more than that because what you teach, this applies to our personal relationships as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, and I'm so glad that you brought that up because something that, gets me most excited about the book is the personal development aspects. And while it's actually always been easy for me to understand what the other person needs, and I feel like you and your community, like, high functioning, codependent people, right? We're always thinking about others. So it's not hard to think
Mhm.
about how can I help someone out? How can I add value? But there's other aspects to relationship building, which include the relationship with yourself and also really discerning who is a safe person to let into your circle. And so the area that I really struggled with is that I would let people into my life too quickly. And once I
Mhm.
felt like there was this emotional bond, I didn't know how to remove them from my life. I didn't know how to assert myself. A mutual friend and colleague of ours, Shuri Salata, I remember hearing her once say, maintaining a friendship not rooted in your truth keeps you out of integrity. And
Mm.
I remember just like having the shivers. And I think this applies to not just friendship, but relationship, like maintaining a relationship not rooted in your truth keeps you out of integrity. And this was like 3 years ago when I heard this. And when I was like, let me reflect on the people that are closest to me. I had relationships with people that were really nice and there were good things about them, but it also came with drama and chaos and confusion. And I was
Mhm.
like, I realized, I'm out of integrity being in a relationship with a friend where I feel like, she's not true to her word or, you see one thing, you get another, right? How can you really like support a friend in business when they're not even an
Mm.
embodiment of their work, right? This was not obvious from the beginning, right? Because if it was like super obvious, you just
Sure.
wouldn't get into those relationships. But it's something that, I've really come to understand that, all people, including myself, right? Every person, like they reveal themselves to you over time. And it's just really important to be patient. And I think that some of us, definitely myself, are sometimes too quick to trust or too quick to invest. And, then we find ourselves in these very challenging situations that actually end up making us quite sad and stressed out.
Mm. Totally. So tell us, what is a rich relationship and why does every entrepreneur need them?
Absolutely. So, a rich relationship is one that massively enriches your life and your business, right? And so, there's many different kinds of rich relationships. But at the end of the day, I think we all know that we can't achieve our biggest goals and dreams alone. We need other people to support us in all the different ways that they can. And so, it really is the fastest way to get from where we are to where we want to be. And when we're trying to get the word out about our business, it's one thing for us to tell everyone, hey, I'm the best at what I do, like work with me. but it means so much when there are other people endorsing you.
Yeah.
And so that's why they're just so essential for every entrepreneur.
It's so true. And it's like, I think about how it really, they talk about raising kids and say, it takes a village. And you're
Yeah.
like, having a successful business also takes a village. And
Right.
the rich relationships that you write about in this book and how you're sort of walking the reader through how to cultivate them and what does that actually look like? Because again, like I said at the top, I was sort of like asking you, I wasn't like, how can I get to these people? But I was, when you asked me who was aspirational, I had a list, and just flipping that really changed the way that I went about those relationships, but so many others. So let's talk about, in the book, you talk us through the top 5 rich relationships that every entrepreneur needs.
Yes.
So can you want to tell us about them? You want me to
Yeah.
mention them and then you can tell us?
Oh, no, absolutely. Let's talk about them. Yeah. So there's 5 relationships I believe every entrepreneur needs. Number 1, a mentor, right? All of us, when we get started in our business, there's things that we need to figure out. And then we get to the next level and there's a new devil waiting for us. And so, we need people to show us a shortcut cuts and avoid costly mistakes. So that's essential. The second one is peers, because in addition to someone that is, far ahead of you, it's also great to have people on the same journey with you, people that really understand what you're going through, right? So I would say I'm personally in a place in my business where I don't need as much traditional mentorship. I already know what my business is and what my model is, but I do find so much fulfillment from having friends I can bounce ideas off of, as I go along my business journey. Then number 3 is a promoter. So all of us need promoters, and there's different kinds of promoters. I would put the media in this category where they're sharing your work on their bigger platform. But a promoter could also be a referral partner that tells someone, you've got to work with this person. They're amazing. But we all need people shouting our name from the rooftops. And then the 4th rich relationship is a team member. I think a lot of times when people think of, okay, who are the influential people in my business, we kind of think of people far outside of ourselves or far away, that person with a massive following who doesn't know who we are yet. But the reality is that our team members are the people who are closest to our business, and they can really make or break us. They can create, so much success and comfort and ease in our business, or they can create stress and chaos. So we really do want to make sure that we have the right people on our team. And then last but not least, number 5 is the confidant. And so the confidant, that's what you are, Terri, to so many people, but is that person that others can really lean on. I think it's hard going through business if you feel like you always have to have that mask on or feel like things are perfect. And it might not be appropriate to share all of your problems with just whoever comes, across your path, but you do want to have those safe people where they can see the messiest side of you. And this could be a therapist, an executive coach, a best friend. Although I will say that for a lot of us, just relying on one person as a confidant, especially a friend, like who's supporting you in an unpaid capacity, can be a pretty big burden. So I do recommend that people have multiple confidants that they can lean on.
Yeah, it's a great idea. And I think that as entrepreneurs, a lot of us there's a hyper independence, especially high functioning codependence, where we're not the best at asking for help.
No.
Not the best at receiving help. But the truth of what you're talking about with these rich relationships that every entrepreneur needs is that you have to prioritize that, because this is how you work things out in your business, is talking to people. And actually, you and I were in a mastermind together back in the day, like 11 years ago, was it?
It was so long ago. I think, it was maybe 12 years ago.
Yeah,
12 years. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And look at, and I don't know if we knew each other before that, or is that where we met? Do you remember?
I think that's where we met. Yeah. Look where we are now, doing new things.
It's amazing, but we've also stayed really in each other's lives over these many years.
Yes.
And I think that, again, that's a gift to create, to have, that was like a peer mastermind. So yes, we had a mentor in that mastermind, but it was also a peer mastermind. And many of those relationships have stayed to this day.
Absolutely.
So I think there really is something about connecting and nurturing the parts of you that need connection, because as human beings, we all need connections. Like, we really do, especially when you're building a business.
Yeah.
Um, you talk about in the book 3 types of givers. So can
Yes.
you expand on that for us a little?
Yeah, so I love talking about this. So, when it comes to giving, there's 3 different types of givers. So, the first type is the indiscriminate giver. So, this is someone that gives from a place of I'm not enough and I need to constantly prove myself to people. So,
Hmm.
they're, the first to help, but what happens is they typically run themselves ragged, and over time, they start to actually get resentful and angry at the people that they are supporting, even though sometimes they were the ones who were initiating the
Right.
support, right?
Yep.
And then there is a transactional giver, and that is someone
Mm.
who will give only if they know that they'll get something of equal value or greater in return. And, I just want to be clear that in business, we do need to have transactions, like we need to accept
Sure.
money, but I'm talking more about from a place of pure giving.
Hmm.
Transactional giving is the giving that comes with a lot of strings attached. And, if the
Hmm.
person is no longer influential, if the person isn't powerful, they don't have money, then that person's gone. But when it's a genuine relationship, even if, your income level changes, even if things
Hmm.
shift, even if your identity changes, the relationship is still intact. So, it's
Right.
transactional giving if it's like dependent on you being able to provide things to that person all the time.
Hmm.
And then there's rich giving. And so rich giving is when someone purposely pours into another person. They're not trying to help every person in the world, but they're able to identify where there is this just ease and comfort and abundant win-win energy. And because they're giving in a way that is intentional and feels good, and they know how to manage themselves,
Hmm.
they're giving from a place of pure abundance. And then they also allow themselves for others to pour into them. So I
Mm.
really do believe, like with building relationships, that is about quality over quantity, and that one rich relationship is more valuable than 100 casual connections. We can feel connected on social media when we have, maybe thousands of followers on Facebook and Instagram, but are these people really going to show up for you in your lowest moments? If you reach out to them
Right.
and say, I need help, are they going to be there, right? A part of being successful and building rich relationships is actually having what I call strategic social skills. People talk a lot about nonverbal skills, eye contact, body language, or verbal
Hmm.
skills in terms of how do you introduce yourself. But I have kind of coined this term, this whole other category of social skills, which really involves things like understanding what are the relationships where I should pour into, where do I need to establish boundaries and things like that, right? So really
Hmm.
the decision making around relationships.
It's actually so important because if you don't know where to draw boundaries, if you're not sure, if you're pouring into someone who's not pouring into you, right, then obviously you're going to end up depleted rather than filled up. I want to ask you something about, like, everyone who comes on the show, we talk about sort of the origin story for them. So if this was like a Marvel movie, right, you were a Marvel movie hero, you would have an origin story. Can you think of what influenced you to be so skilled and interested in creating rich relationships and teaching people how to do it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's interesting because I would say that in some ways, my dad is perhaps my biggest influence. So, in both positive ways and maybe not so positive ways, but all for the good because I'm grateful for the combination of traits that
Right.
make up who I am. But, and I've shared this before publicly, but my dad is someone who, is emotionally volatile, gets angry really easily. And so I think growing up, I always became very attuned to people's emotions. I was always
Yep.
anticipating what would come next. And I also became very good at like phrasing things in a way that I was always creating harmony that I wouldn't like trigger or upset anyone. So I do
Yep.
think that I'm skilled in communication. So there's that. And also a big part of relationship building is being someone that considers other people, that is thinking about what would make them happy, how do you connect to people? So there was that piece. But the other thing is my dad was really great at bringing people together. So at one point he was the vice chairman of the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and had his own
Hmm.
successful, brokerage. And in Hong Kong, And in many parts of Asia, it's actually an honor to take care of people and pay for their meals. So if you go to a restaurant in Hong Kong and there's, a couple people out together, people will fight for the bill and be like, no, you can't pay. I'm taking care of this. And they'll literally grab it from your hands and rush to the waiter or waitress and be like, I'm taking care of this. And so it's interesting because when I was living in New York for years, I would host these gatherings, these dinner parties and these media and influencer events. And I just got so much joy from bringing people people in the media and entrepreneurs together so they can make these connections and really connect and bond over meals. And when I look back, I'm like, my dad role modeled that.
Right. That's interesting. And so there really is a cultural element and there is a modeled behavior element, something that you actually saw where you're like, oh, okay, so this is how you do it and this is what you do. Because we all do what we do for reasons, right? Like sometimes we know what they are, sometimes we don't know what they are. Okay, so back to the framework in the book, which I found this really interesting. You talk about the 6 circles of connection. So which you use to kind of manage your network without burning out, because this burnout is such a big issue that I see on the interwebs and in these rough streets out here. So can you break this down for us a little bit?
Oh my goodness. This is probably my favorite framework in the book. And I really use this in my life all the time. So when you think about your relationships, obviously not every relationship is created equal. And I like to think about relationships based on how much trust do you extend to them and how close do you let them get to you, right? That's really how you prioritize your relationships. So circle 1 is your innermost circle. These are people who are basically doing life with you. This could be your life partner. It might be your very best friend. If you've been working with a therapist for 7 years and week by week, they're kind of on the pulse of what's happening in your life. These are circle 1 relationships. For some people, they might have 0 circle 1 relationships. For others, maybe it's 1 to 3 or 6, but it's a very small circle that really knows what's happening on the daily or at least on the weekly. The next circle 2, these are your treasured connections. So these are people who are really close to you. You don't necessarily need to be talking to them all the time, but whenever you do pick up the phone and talk to them, it's just like, oh my gosh, this feels like my soul family. And if you ever needed help and you texted them and you're like, I need to talk to you this evening, they would rearrange their schedule. They would prioritize to make sure that they could speak to you and show up for you. So that's your circle 2. And I feel like as people are listening, you're probably thinking oh, I know who goes in circle 2. I know who goes in circle 1, which is good, right? You need to know where people fall. And then there's circle 3. So this is your broader active network. So this is where most of your friends fall in. These are people that you respect, that there is a values alignment. You feel comfortable with them. And they need to crash a night at your home. No big deal. You'd be happy to have them over. There's someone that you could enthusiastically recommend to someone. You trust that they're, a good person. So that's your circle 3. And then there's circle 4. So circle 4 are your distant connections. And there's a couple of reasons why someone might be in circle 4. So maybe you just met them, and even though you feel so excited, the reality is because you just met them and had one conversation or 2 conversations, they're still a stranger, right? There is still, time that needs to unfold to know who they are. Another reason why they might be in circle 2 is that while there's things that you like about them, there's values misalignment. Maybe it's somebody who's always down in the dumps and always complaining about people, or someone that just doesn't follow through on their word. And so you're like, okay, I'm not going to expel them from my network. They can still, come to the party and be a part of my world, but I'm not going to rely on them or count on them in the exact same way as maybe my circle 1, 2, and 3. Other reasons why someone might be in circle 4 is literally you are just full to the brim. You have so many rich relationships and there's only so many people that you can give to. So you can't even really show up for all these additional people. So they just need to kind of be in that more of acquaintance or distant connection category. And then there's circle 5, and circle 5 is someone who is typically they've betrayed your trust in some way, or you've had these conversations with them. And despite, continued conversations, nothing seems to change. And it's kind of reached a point where it's actually not safe for you to be in close connection with these people, right? You really need that distance. So those are disconnected people. There's someone that I know who, is really nice to me, but I know from my friends that this person is litigious, loves suing people and creating all kinds of drama. And for me, I'm like, you know what? I'm I'm not going to engage, even if this person is powerful and influential. I'm like, she's going in my
Yep.
circle 5. I'm just like not going there, right?
Yep.
And then there's circle 6. And so this is unconnected. So that's everyone else out there in the world. You might know of each other, but if you haven't spoken to
Mm-hmm.
each other, that's not a real relationship. And so I just want
Right.
to be clear that these circles, this is a mental framework to help you. You're not telling people, I've put you into circle 4.
Right.
I've moved you into circle 2. It's just for yourself to know. And so when Sherry Salata says maintaining a friendship not rooted in your
Mm.
truth keeps have integrity, well, you can just move that person to circle 4 and then just, engage with them appropriately.
All right. So I love that. What do you say to people, what can entrepreneurs do who
Yeah.
are more introverts than
Yeah.
extroverts? And what if they find it, they don't know where to begin? What would you say they should do?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing to do is really embrace the fullness of who you are. So I'm such a massive introvert. When I take the test, I'm like 80 to 90% introvert. That's just how I'm built. But the other thing
Mhm.
is, like, I'm also really good at building relationships. And so depending on your unique personality, you're going to have your own unique relationship building strengths. So for
Right.
me, if I go to an event and there's 6 people talking in a circle, I'm always going to be the person listening. I'm never going to be the one that is like leading the conversation and jumping in, because the way that my introvert brain works is by the time I
Mhm.
process things, the conversation has already moved on, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Right.
it's just the way it is. Or, there's a
Yeah.
lot of people, I'm going to be that wallflower in the corner talking to like one person and having a deep conversation.
Mm.
So while I'm not great at maintaining a lot of superficial connections and being the life of the party and being spontaneous, but I know that I am really good at creating intimacy and making people feel seen and valued and appreciated. I can go really deep with people. So then that's my relationship building strength. I'm also really good at leading. I love putting together events because I create events that I would like to go to. And
Mhm.
also when you're the leader, right, it's a lot easier. Like everybody, appreciates you for doing the work to curate the group and so forth. So yeah, I'm typically either the leader bringing everyone together, or I'm just having that intimate conversation with 1 or 2 people. And that's just like me understanding me. So for all the introverts, I really want you to tune into where you feel most comfortable when it comes to relationship building. What are the kinds of relationships that light you up? What are the specific kinds of people that you're drawn to? I think all of us, introvert or not introverted, we definitely have our strong preferences based on our values, and it can be hard to fake something if it's not
Mhm.
there. For example, like my number one core value is excellence. And I get really excited about people that are brilliant at their work. And I want to, share about them and connect them to people. And I get so much joy and so much energy from that. But if I am maybe connecting with someone who is sloppy about their work, or they're
Mhm.
just, I don't know, not the same as like my friends, I can't be my most expressed super connector promoter self, right? Because that is my
Yep.
value. And for other people, maybe one of their values is honesty and integrity. And if someone is consistently sharing these small lies or fudging the truth or trying to pretend they're someone they're not, it's going to be
Yep.
hard for them to build that genuine relationship. So I think the first step to just getting started is understanding who you are and who are the kind of people that you even want to be in rich relationship with.
Yep. I love that so much. I also would say take a page out of Selena Soo's playbook that she gave me 15 years ago, or whatever it was, 10, 12 years ago,
Yes.
that if people are aspirational, there's someone doing something that you like what they're doing, or you want to be a part of it, or you want to help them with it, like really ask yourself, how can I be of service? And that generosity that you talk about in the book so much, like the generosity of spirit, there's something that changes, that shifts when you go from grabby to try to get, and
Right.
to really giving in the way that you describe it. That I just feel like, and this is not to get too woo, but I do feel like we are energy, and that
Right.
the universe responds to what we're doing. And when you're in flow and you're aligned with your values, as you just said, I feel like good things happen. that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And in the book, I call that relaxed abundance, trusting that everything is happening for you. And when it comes to the relationships that we're building, that we don't need to rush things and force things to happen. When you are a generous person and you share your gifts, there are going to be people that want to be in rich relationship with you. And I actually really want to talk about this concept of golden moments, which is really being able to identify when it matters most to show up in these rich relationships. So there's two kinds of golden moments. The first one is around people's pain, right? And Joe Polish talks about in his book, What's in It for Them, to be a pain detective. And so you might say, Selena, Terri, like, how do I know when people are in pain? Like, I'm not a mind reader. And I would challenge you and say, you actually do know when people are in pain. If you live in the United States, I have a feeling that you know people that were affected by the wildfires in LA. If you're in the United States, you probably know some people in, Florida or North Carolina whose homes got hit by the hurricane. You probably know people who are going through divorce right now. You probably know people who are struggling in their business and feeling like, I don't even know who I am as a person. I don't even know what my business identity or personal identity is. Am I even relevant? You know people who are going through financial challenge, right? Or let's say you know someone that is launching a book, right? So that's a big dream. But with those big dreams often comes pain, because everyone I know who launches a book is like, I wish people would show up for me after all the things that I've done for them, right? And the thing is, like, if you have, say, a particular offer, like a high ticket offer, you can have like a couple clients and you'll be fine. But when it's a book, you actually need multiple thousands of people to buy the book to really create a movement and to hit the bestsellers list, right? And so when people are in pain, how can you be the first to offer help versus the last to give help, right? So how can you be the first? I really believe in just like taking initiative when it comes to relationships. When you see someone that you care about in pain, how can you just proactively reach out to them and offer to be helpful? And similarly, thinking about people's biggest goals and dreams, right? Like you become their favorite person when you show up and you're like, I want to help you reach that goal and dream faster. Are you open to me making this connection? Could I support you in this way, right? When you show up in people's lowest moments and also in the moments that matter most with their goals and dreams, you're going to become their new favorite person. And so for me, I feel like I'm just very good at identifying the moments where people need help. And then I just show up in a way that feels relaxed and abundant. It's also good to discern how much you can give, because you don't want to overgive and be resentful, because then it's like that sometimes a person didn't even need it. And then now you're mad at them and it's that damages the relationship. But there's lots of easy ways that we can be helpful, from making an introduction to sharing an idea to if someone's got a book coming out, buy 10 copies. It's $20, per book, right? $200 is not going to be, a big deal if it's someone who you truly care about and there's someone that's so important. I think about, for me, anyone who is a friend, I would happily take them out to dinner and pay $200 for dinner. It's just a no-brainer. It's for me, it would just be automatic. And I think $200 is a good amount. There's a lot that you can do to help people with that kind of dollar amount, just gifts, introductions, whatever it is. I really encourage people to not wait for opportunities, but rather create opportunities to be a rich giver in someone else's world.
I love it. All right. Last but not least, I know you have a free gift for our listeners and our watchers. So what do you got? Tell us about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my vision is that I create this movement around rich relationships. And so I know a big part of that is to get my book in the hands of as many people as possible. So one thing that I'm doing is I'm giving away the first 4 chapters of the book for free. And I'm also giving, my rich relationship scripts, because when people read the book, they're like, oh my gosh, I love how you phrase things, because when it comes to building relationships, nurturing and activating them, we need to know the right words to say, right? The right words change everything. And so I've compiled all the top scripts from the book and more into this bundle. And so they can get the first 4 chapters and all my rich relationship scripts that have helped me generate millions in my business. And they can go get that at Rich Relationships, that's plural, richrelationshipsbook.com/Terri Cole. So richrelationshipsbook.com/Terri Cole, they are going to get the first 4 chapters of the book, my rich relationship scripts. And if they go and grab that by May 30th, then they're also going to be entered to win $1,000. So every reason why you should go and get your hands on those scripts and the first 4 chapters of the book.
Right on. Well, congratulations, my friend. I'm so excited for you. This is amazing. I cannot wait for everyone to get your book in their hot little hands. Thank you, thank you, thank you for doing what you do. I super appreciate you. I love you, and we'll have you back on.
Thank you.